Hey everybody. So what we do on Saturdays is run through our top 10 list to watch for next week. And I'm going to jump right into it. It's not going to be in alphabetical order. And let's just start right now. This is one I actually have in the newsletter. And they're in no discernible order through 1 through 10. And they're not in alphabetical order because there's only 10 of them. This is one I have in the newsletter. And you can get the copy of the newsletter for free, actually. Just the Wednesday edition. Just there's a link in the descriptions. But I just want to point this out because this is not going away. Just because you may not be in at this price, I just want to kind of go through this. So you see this 290 level, right? So this 290.23. So we're going to zoom in on this a little bit. Okay. And you're going to see how you couldn't break it here, couldn't close above it here. Couldn't close above it here, reversed, right? And people that are aware, this is basically an evening star completion. Morning star kind of figures it out, doesn't really complete, stops at the 8, right? Tries to break, can't break. What's it do the next day? The low becomes this. That's a sign, a very clear sign that when your low is here and your low's in place, that this may hold, right? So this did present some kind of possible entry even right here. But what I really liked was when you got above all this, because that means all the people that were in here have either chosen to not sell or they're out. So that gives us that break, right? Now, what's interesting is every single day, no matter what happens in the market and how we're selling off, even on very light volume, we're just slowly grinding higher, right? And I think that's a very important distinction. It's not really running away. And this is really what you want from a stock. You really don't want, I get you want the huge moves, and we're going to go through a couple that have had huge moves. But when you have a position that happened like this, that happened over 7-8 months ago, and you've just been waiting, right? And you can't get it, and finally it happens. This entire area from here down, and I can shrink this so we can talk about it a little more in depth right here. Okay, you just have one enormous base. That's all this is a base. If you were to just count off the base, what your move is, it's staggering. So for me, some of these top 10s are short. This is a very long-term move for me. To me, this is a secular breakout, and I'm going to walk through that part in a minute. Secular meaning more than, a very short time frame is the way to look at it. I think this could be the beginning of it finally getting going. People need to understand the company's not just an at-home stock. It's a convenience stock, and they benefit greatly, especially realtors and lawyers. It's a very good service. Anyway, see how you broke here, undercut it, and then you rallied through it? Okay. So with all this going on, the rally, the test, right? First time we didn't get through, second time we did. So let's go and take a look at this. Okay. So I don't have a full, right? I didn't encapsulate from here to here. So I don't have a full bullish engulfing on the weekly, but my entire body of this weekly bar encompassed all this week of the previous one. So from that standpoint, I do. What's interesting is you're flipping a major channel here. And let me just point that out. So you're going to click here. Click here. See this? Okay. When you get through this, and you're going to get through this with the kind of momentum that we're seeing right now, when you get through this, you have flipped this upper channel. Now, what does the stock look like? It would look like if you see what's going on with Google right now or Facebook and how they're breaking out of those weekly channels, right? And I can just throw this up for an example so you can kind of see. This is the weekly channel on Facebook. See how we have a bullish engulfing and we're breaking out of it? Right? Reason I won't recommend this stock right now is just because earnings are next week. But you can see that on these larger cap names. And I think that that's even here, like Google. See how it's happening? When that happens, we're setting up for a very healthy market and a nice long leg. And what you're seeing is the names that are going to be in this are going to be your bigger cap names. They're the ones that are getting attention. So I do believe that this is going to flip and go parabolic. So for me, looking at this, and I'll draw it this way because it's even cleaner, right? This is a monthly. So you can just kind of understand what transpired, right? So you can kind of see how you went and it just exploded. So for me, this is just beginning on the monthly. And you have this wedge that when you break through this could continue to run this for some time. So I'm looking at this, and we started with a 350 target price. I would expect it to, over time, if we're able to stay in it, for that to go up. If you were to count the base from 290 down to here is 90 points on the breakout. So that puts you more like 400, 375. And I think it's very realistic considering how long you've been basing for. So the second one, I'm going to clean this up a little bit. The second one is Etsy. And the reason I want to just talk about this one is because it's doing everything right. You're seeing this space move, just like we saw Shop. And yes, they're not in the same space, but they're in similar spaces. So if you look at what's going on here, you had this major downtrend that is broken, right? But what you're not able to do, and I'm going to get rid of these moving averages, we can all see how the 8 is pointing up. The 50 is about to cross the 200, right? Which is called what? A golden cross. So you could see all this stuff kind of shaping up, okay? What you really don't see is you don't see this because you have a lot of minutia in the way. And this is really what you want to get through. So you have this rally, right? And then you have this high and you think you're through. But if you really zone into this level, okay, just do it from here so you can see it. So you're sitting right here and you're sitting right above this one too. Just a little bit, not much, but just a little bit, right? So what we really want to see is we want to see a close over that. I don't know that you're going to be able to wait until you see that close. So what you can do is just go on the assumption that if you break this on huge volume, that it's going to go. And earnings for Etsy are coming out very soon. So just be aware of that. You're coming out August 4th. And whether or not you stay in for earnings is obviously up to you. But what you're seeing here is if we break this level, this downward trend, that should get me to the top of this level. It really should. It should get me up here. And that gives me 253 on the stock. That's not a bad trade considering that you just use this line as your stop and you come down. So you know, by the time you're risking 10 to make 40, it's 4 to 1. I mean, I'll do those kinds of trades all day long. If you look at what's really going on here, here's that weekly line, right? The red bar. See how we closed above this particular red bar on the weekly? This red bar on the weekly was in charge. We kept riding that 50 week. What are we doing here? We're doing great, right? We're staying right above it. See how we couldn't get over it before? Here, let's get rid of this so you can see clearer what I'm looking at. See how we couldn't get through it before? Bonk, bonk, bonk. And then what happens? We get through it. And how do we get through it? On a bullish engulfing, right? This is what you want to see. What you're looking for are the next stocks that are going to break out, like the Facebooks, the Googles, the Snaps. And this, you're starting to see the sector come back. So I would definitely have this on my watch list. So a lot of people knew of this, right? And have been watching this. I think it's really important to understand what's transpiring here with ROKU. And this is number 3 on the list. And I don't think this move's done. I'm not going to get into the difference here between SSP and DSP, you know, between the demand platform and the supply platforms. I would just argue that it is important. And there's a reason that certain stocks went up on Friday. And you might be seeing a secular change to the advertising market. And it's one of the reasons why we saw ROKU act the way that it did. Now, you have this break on ROKU, right? And you have this reversal here. So you have this bullish engulfing, right? But what you're really seeing here, more than anything, is you see this cup, okay? So you have a huge cup here, right? If you got rid of this bar, okay, you actually have a handle. And we can just clone this for time's sake. You always want to clone them and put them where they lie, and that's your channel. It's kind of interesting how that always works out, right? So, in same exact angle. It's crazy. But now what happened? We broke through the handle and we're pushing. this move, in my opinion, is not anywhere near over yet. So if you're looking at 486, and I can show this on the daily, but this just makes it so much cleaner. So 486.72 is really what you're looking for. Now, where can you go? Well, you know, here's your trend line. Here's your peak. Here's your other peak. Okay, so if I was to very simply say on this break, I can get up to 580 in the same week. If it takes months, you follow where I'm going with this? It could be even higher. So I would argue that this move is not over. It's just been beginning. And a lot of people have been waiting and watching for this move to happen, right? And here you can see the, you know, it's interesting. You just leave those lines in and you can see what happens. But here's your cup. Here's your handle. There's your break. The day before, the break failed. The snap earnings were what you needed to get it through. You could put the indicators in, but it's kind of pointless. You're above all of them. I mean, everybody should know that, right? So it's not really adding value. So I would have this on my list, and I'd be watching that 486.72 level, and I would look at this one longer term. So you're starting to see more of a move in some of the biotech names and pharmaceutical names. The IBB, if we just look at this for a moment, okay, if you just look at this, the IBB is actually breaking out. And one of the things I've been trying to explain to people is that when you come through this, right, when you come through a correction or a mini pullback, whatever you call it, you always get new stocks. And I'm not saying that the old ones aren't going to work like the SOX, but the SOX, which is the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index, is not shaping up like this is, right? It's just not. I think it's really important for people to understand that, like, this is breaking out, the other one's not. And that means that you should be looking in these stocks. So the Qs are breaking back out, right? Which is the NASDAQ. So now I have to go into the sectors. The biotech shares are breaking out. Now I drill into the stocks. And we're going to go through a couple of these names. But ALNY is in this space. And I find this very interesting. So see this here, right? Look. So you're getting all these volume spikes, and this is ALNY. Symbols are up here, right? You broke down, but you've reversed. You filled that gap. You never really looked back. You got to the top here. What happened? We rejected. We got through again. We tested the rejection, and we're here. So now what you're seeing with this is you're seeing a test again of this level, and we're holding. Well, this 178.41 is essentially your stop at this point, right? Because we've broken through it, we've tested it, and it's flipped. How do we know that it's flipped? Because it was resistance here, and what is it here? Now it's support, right? That makes sense. It's easy enough. Okay, getting to 184.83, call it 185. I need to see big volume on this. Could really propel this stock higher. And let's walk through why. Okay. So here I am on the weekly, and you can see the channel here, right? I really don't even need to draw it. You can see that. Okay. So you have a channel here, but we'll put it in anyway, right? So there's your channel. So what's going to happen when I break that level? I'm going to break this channel. Okay. When I break that channel, you're going to see a propel higher. Now let's go look at the monthly. Okay. So here you are in the monthly, and you've already broken that level, right? The month's not over, but you've already broken that level. So you have this entire move on this that's already broken. Okay? That entire move's already broken out. So I think that's really important to understand. So this has a lot of potential to keep going. I don't think this is going to be the fastest mover in the world, but I do think it's going to keep running up. I think you could break 184, and then very simply, you could just look at the base of this and kind of understand what kind of move you could see. You know, it would be nothing to see 25, 30% on this very easily. So I like this trade. And what I really like about it too is, you know, you're looking at a $7, right? What are you looking at? A $7 stop. I mean, versus the potential here for 50 points, 40 points. So I think it's very realistic for this thing to go to 225. So keep that one in mind. CRMT was another one that came across that I've been waiting and watching. It's a smaller name, but they lend in the used auto market. And that market is just, as everybody knows, is just on fire. So I think that'll continue. I don't see any reason for that to stop. If you looked at the CPI data that came out, right, 1/3 of the increase in CPI was used car sales and the pricing of used car sales, I rather should say. So that's not going away. That's why you're seeing the Carvanias of the world, right? You're seeing these, the Carvanias of the world. Look at this, right? I mean, that's pretty clear what's going on. That looks like it's going to go a lot higher. AutoNation is another one that I think goes higher. But to get back to it, the CRMT, what's interesting is as you're here to here, right? What you're going to see is you're going to see a push. But let's talk about this for a minute because this is when it's important to know where your moving averages are. So we had a sell down, okay? And we came here on Friday and we tested this level, right? Now let's just go through this, okay? So we tested that level. Then we got above the 50. So we open, right? For some reason, someone decides they want out. There's panic. They get out. We go back over the open and we close over this wick. And now we close here. Well, what does that tell me? Well, that tells me that whoever was in this wick and whoever wanted out, they're out. So whoever was selling, they wanted out. Now, this is when looking at volume is very helpful. So they got out and look how little volume was that came in. Right? So whoever this was got out on this little volume. So when buyers step in, that leads me to believe that this is going to push it even higher. This is a very thin stock, by the way. It's not doesn't have the kind of volume, right? I mean, if it trades 100,000 shares a day, it's a lot. So keep that in mind. But what you want to see that level? You want to close above 154.58. See how we closed right where that is? Roughly, right? On that red bar? So instead of waiting for that close, what you could do is just use the high of that point, which is 155.75. I think if you break that, you have a couple key levels here you're going to have to contend with. This was an issue at this 163, 164, right? So I would look at that line. We've hit there twice and we were unable to sustain it. We hit it here, right? See how it resistance, flips it, runs, comes back down, closes there, support flips to resistance again, right? We talk about how those lines can flip. So that's CRMT. But if it breaks through this, I think there's 10 points here. And if you get through that, I think you're heading to here, 177. So put this on your radar. This space is not going away. You can see what's going on here, right? And besides getting through that, you can see this channel. So this has a lot of long-term potential. The CPI data, the way it comes out, look, I mean, this could go on for years with used cars. I mean, you have to realize when you're talking about secular changes, and secular changes mean, they're different than cyclical, right? So cyclical are, for like 3 months we went and did this, or 6 months we went and did that, right? People leaving large cities and moving to the suburbs need cars more than people moving into the cities. So that whole supply and demand dynamic has changed. I think the one thing that we could all say about the pandemic is that most people realize that they would like a little more space and they don't need to live in a big city. And a lot of people realize that they may be able to work from home or cut down. That's just going to increase car demand. And people are like, I don't want a new car. I'll get a used car. And then they need to finance it. You're getting how I'm putting this all together, I hope. So this is pretty interesting. This ADTN, okay? See how you pulled back all the way here and then you just ran, right? Now look, okay? I pulled back, didn't get to the 200. Look at how the volume came in on the pullback, right? So somebody was waiting to buy this cheaper. Somebody was down here waiting. Look, see the angle change of my volume line? That's like, if you follow volume lines, like that's exactly what you're looking for. So let's go here now and see 22.42. Get through that, right? And you're off. Now you have this that you have to contend to, right? So for people that are talking about my lines and why I'm not up here, there's a reason. I'm not going to bore everybody with it. I'll do a video on it. But what you're going to do is get through 22.24. You're going to have to contend with this, but I think it's worth the risk. And I wouldn't buy it until you get through 22.24, and I would contend with this. And let me just show you this. Okay. this is a bullish engulfing on the weekly here. Solid bullish engulfing that encompassed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks. Like, that's not a joke, right? You just took out 10 weeks of a stock in 1 week. Like, you encapsulated that entire move in 1 week. Look at your volume on the weekly, right? Look at your relative volume if we put relative volume up. Okay, so, and for those that ask, I go through about 500 to 600 stocks every week to come up with the list. And there's a bunch of criteria. I could probably list the criteria at some point. People might want to do it, just find their own ideas, which is great. I mean, that's kind of what I'm trying to do here, is get people to understand that they can learn a lot of this on their own. But you see how you have this huge like cup? You could say maybe this is a handle. Maybe you could say that. But look, okay, there's 25.10. Okay, let's do it this way and just look at it a little cleaner. And I know it's not over, but look how far back this goes, okay? And now look at this. Well, I'm going to do it from here. But if you look at it, it really doesn't matter, because either way you've broken it, right? So no matter where you put it or how you want it, that's where you're at. But you also have this. Okay? So that's the more interesting one, right? So let's get rid of this one, and let's get rid of this one. Okay. So what happens here? We land in here. We try to break that level a couple times. We can't. We try to break it again here. We can't. And now we're sitting and resting right on it. What happens when we flip that level, right? That at least gets us to where, right? The high of this. Okay, $28. So I like this trade. I like it a lot. I don't think it's going to be this huge mover like from here to here, but breaking these levels gives you a really nice spot for your stop, and also gives you an idea that there's a solid 8 or 9 point move there, I think. And I like the volume. The volume is fascinating on that one to me, how it's just increasing. So CDW, okay, come down, test the 50, holds the 50, flips back over the 21 and the 8, and then breaks above this. Okay. We're not really ready for prime time on this one, but we're getting there. And I'll point out what I like about this one, but everyone can kind of see this is your level, right? We can all see that we need 185. Okay. So instead of just drawing the channel here, we're just going to do it this way on the weekly. Okay. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this, right? So what you're going to have to contend with is this. So when you get above there, your first line of defense is going to be here, 194. So I think when you break this, there's a good 10, right? 10 points. But I would just argue that if from where you break that 185, you're not really going to want it to have it go under 180 without probably being stopped out, because at a minimum, you're going to want 2 to 1 on your risk versus return to start, and then you can move it higher. I think you have a shot at breaking this. It's obviously a huge IT company, but look at this, right? You break down, you break out, you form this wedge, and now we're just starting this move, right? You're just starting it. So I think that this is just beginning, and there's another level to this that's going to look something similar to this, but time's going to tell. But I really do like the idea, and I like the space. I just think that this is pretty clean looking chart, right? If you were to really look at this on a daily, you could kind of see a cup here almost, right? And you can almost see this as a handle. And then you can almost see a breakout of the handle where we're going to go and take and challenge what? The high. So if you might be able to see that. I mean, I can draw this very quickly and just pop this in. And then we just clone them, because by cloning them, we get the same trajectory. And then you just you're able to kind of get a good synopsis of what's really going on, right? See how you're in here? See how it popped out, popped back in. Look, a little morning star takes you back up. So you get it. You understand. So HLIO. So Helios Technologies. Look, this is a really, really thin name, okay? And I think that there's massive potential here if it moves. So let's just go through a couple things with it. This is your first major line. This is your major trend line, okay? And you can see how it's been respecting these and respecting that trend. I mean, if you come to here, right? Okay. Breaks, you have 3 days to pop back in. 1, 2, 3. Hits here, opens below it, pops back in, breaks, you have 3 days to pop back in. What's it do? Doesn't pop in. Okay, let's draw this out a little more. See how you never can get back into it? Okay, you get back into this, you're starting to head a lot higher. And I think that that's what's coming. But you have to get above this level. And we talk about these levels all the time and how to play these, right? We talk about this, that usually the first, I could draw that just a little bit better. We talk about how getting through these maybe the first time, right? Like a mouse trying to get cheese, and then the first mouse gets what? Gets a trap. Second mouse gets what? Cheese, right? So if you think about it like that, besides the fact that when you're trading, you'll be laughing thinking about a mouse and cheese, it's just a nice way to just remember, just because you fails once doesn't mean you don't go back and get the cheese, right? And then you do the trade. So I like this one, and I think it has potential. I think it has potential to flip these lines. Let's put the indicators in again. And you can kind of see where I'm going with this, right? But you need to break through this and then start challenging these levels and moving your way up. And I do like this one, for obvious reasons. But I like when I'm seeing stuff like this, right? I like stuff like this. I like stuff that is a little orderly like that. And then you have your chance where you try to run and then you collapse back through it, right? Like, I mean, it's telling you a story. Like, we tried to do it, couldn't do it, forms an evening star on the monthly, breaks back through it, tries to pop, can't, tries to pop, can't, builds, breaks through, finally holds, wham, right? So it's basically telling you a story over the past 12 years, what's going on here. So I believe wholeheartedly that, you know, besides closing at the all-time high, that just getting above that little wick, this thing could really take off. Once you flip monthly levels like this and you truly stay above them, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I wouldn't count this one, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Once you can do this, you're in decent shape. So that's what I like about it. So ILMN, and I want to just point this out on a daily first. So I really like this name. And I really like the other names that are in the space more. You know, the long gene sequencing names more than the short gene sequencing names, which is what ILMN is. And ILMN has been trying to buy names like PAC-B, and they've been told that they're not going to be able to, in so many words, right? So the regulatory bodies that B feel that that's not good, so they're going to avoid this. And I really would like to see these stocks take off. I mean, it's very interesting what they can do. You know, as far as for medical advancement, it would be great. What we need to see is, what are we going to do with what's going on here? I personally feel that we're breaking out here, and we're about to get through one really quick level, and then that should really do it. So for me, all I'm looking for is this wick. Okay, if I can get through that wick right there, 497, which is exactly where I closed, I have an interest. I'm not going to wait for this because it's 50 points or 10%. It's too much. This little red bar that we're going to work our way up, that's fine, right? That gets me another $10. If I go up to this red bar and I reject, so this, you can understand why this is my entry. So if I get up to the top of that open and I reject, that's fine. Put my stop underneath. I get stopped out at break even, and I took a shot and it didn't work. And as everybody knows, that people that take a shot, sometimes they just don't work. It's just the way it is. So if it was easy, everybody would do it. So let's take a look at this a little clearer. So, right? So there are your levels. And all you want to do is just walk up. That's it. You're just going to walk it up. Just walk the trade up. And I think you're going to get above this. Now, what I'd love to see when this happens is we're going to flip this line. Well, when you flip this monthly, you could see a big push through this number. So my first target is this. I personally think you're going a lot higher. the way it's trading. My first target's 60 points, but I think that this is setting up to go a lot higher. But we're going to start there and see how we do. Finally, this is a really new issue, and I'm surprised that I'm talking about it, but it's so interesting. I get asked a lot about IPOs all the time, whether it's Twitter, Reddit, the community, whatever, and no one's brought this one up to me. And this is the one that makes the most sense to me. Forget that they're car washes, right? Forget what it is, the space that they're in for a moment. See what's going on here? 23.62. You have nothing but air above you on this chart. Nothing but air above you on this chart. So if this breaks out, if we throw these in again, right? It's a very light, thin stock. Just keep that in mind, MCW. So it can have volatile moves like this. All we're looking for is a push higher. That's all we're looking for. Get me through this and close above this level, right? And you could just do something as simplistic as count from here to here, right? 1948. What's that get me? 4 points, 20%. So it's not unrealistic to see this stock at $28, $30. And all I'm going to do is, if I get below this line again, right? If I pop above it and I start closing below this line, just get out of the trade. So this is a really simple trade, and you can use some other things with this, like here. So something like this, you could use volume by price, fairly easy. And you could also use RSI, right? Because there's not a lot of data points, right? So let me just get rid of the volume for a minute. So you can see what this is telling you, right? You can also see that how we're higher already over here than we were over here, which is what? A positive divergence in the RSI, which means the probability of this breaking is greater. The moving averages you can use. You can see how it's tracking the 8-hour. What I liked about this and what I just want to show is these bars up here. There's nothing up here. There's no volume, right? It's just a clean break. And then you can also use something, because this is a thinner name that has not been out a long time. You could start walking this stuff down on 15-minute charts and seeing how it looks, right? And you're going to see more negative divergence on a 15-minute over a longer period of time. But then you can see this over here, right? So I like this, and I think this has potential. So that's it for the week. They're the top 10 that I would look at. We have a ton of earnings for the week coming up, and I might, if I have time, I may do another video on that. So make sure you subscribe and click notifications so you're aware of that. I'm going to possibly do one or short one tomorrow on Microsoft, Google, Shop. They're all coming out with earnings. It's like an earnings bonanza next week. So that's it. Everybody have a great day.